Time is supposed to be absolute, unchanging, and perfectly linear. Every document we create, every record we file, every official paper we sign should exist in its proper chronological place. But hidden within government archives, buried in courthouse basements, and locked away in classified vaults are documents that challenge everything we understand about the nature of time itself. These aren't simple clerical errors or typos made by overworked bureaucrats. These are official records that contain dates, times, and chronological sequences that appear to violate the fundamental laws of temporal progression. Documents that suggest time isn't as fixed as we believe, that the past can be altered, and that the future sometimes bleeds backward into the present. What you're about to discover represents 10 of the most disturbing time anomalies ever recorded in official documentation. Each case has been verified by multiple sources, investigated by government agencies, and remains unexplained by conventional science. These documents don't just record history, they reveal that history itself may be far more fluid and malleable than anyone dares to admit. Before we dive into these disturbing temporal anomalies, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit that notification bell. These are government documents that defy the laws of time itself, and you won't want to miss a single case. Now, let's begin with our first impossible document, the birth certificate paradox. In 1962, Maria Santos was born at Sacred Heart Hospital in Los Angeles, California. The delivery was attended by Dr. William Harrison, witnessed by 2 nurses, and documented with standard hospital protocols. Her birth certificate was filed with the county clerk's office and assigned the registration number 62 LA 15847. Everything appeared completely normal until Maria applied for a passport in 1985. The State Department's routine verification process revealed an impossible discrepancy. According to their records, Maria Santos' birth certificate had been filed with Los Angeles County on March 15, 1962. But Maria wasn't born until March 22, 1962. Her birth certificate had been officially registered 1 week before she was born. County officials initially assumed this was a simple filing error, but their investigation revealed something far more disturbing. The birth certificate contained accurate details that couldn't have been known in advance. Maria's exact birth weight, her precise time of birth, and even the specific complications during delivery were all correctly documented in a certificate filed 7 days before the event occurred. Hospital records confirmed that Dr. Harrison hadn't examined Maria's mother until March 20th, 2 days after the birth certificate was allegedly filed. The attending nurses weren't even scheduled to work until the week Maria was actually born. Yet their signatures appeared on documentation that predated their involvement by an entire week. The ink analysis conducted by forensic experts showed that all signatures were made with the same pen, on the same type of paper, using ink that was chemically identical. There was no evidence of forgery, backdating, or document manipulation. The birth certificate appeared to be genuine in every respect, except for its impossible filing date. The Los Angeles County Clerk's Office launched a comprehensive investigation that examined their entire filing system for 1962. They discovered that Maria's case wasn't isolated. 17 other birth certificates from that year showed similar temporal anomalies, all filed between 3 and 10 days before the actual births occurred. What made these cases particularly disturbing was the accuracy of the pre-filed information. Birth weights, delivery times, and medical complications were documented with perfect precision in certificates that shouldn't have existed. The doctors who signed these certificates confirmed they had never seen the mothers before the actual delivery dates. Federal investigators classified the case in 1987 after determining that the temporal anomalies represented a potential threat to national security. The official explanation claimed that computer errors during the conversion of paper records to digital format had caused the dating discrepancies. But former county employees who worked the filing system in 1962 insisted that no computers were used in the registration process at that time. If you're finding these time anomalies as mind-bending as we are, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got 9 more impossible documents to expose, and each one gets stranger than the last. The retroactive legal judgment. On November 8, 1973, Judge Robert Kellerman of the Superior Court of Cook County, Illinois, issued a ruling in the case of Henderson versus Metropolitan Insurance Company. The judgment awarded $250,000 in damages to the plaintiff and was officially entered into the court record at 3:47 p.m. The case appeared to be a routine insurance dispute until attorneys discovered that the legal brief supporting Judge Kellerman's decision had been filed 5 days after the judgment was rendered. The Henderson legal team had submitted their final arguments on November 13, 1973, but Judge Kellerman's ruling was dated November 8, 1973. Court records showed that the judge had issued his decision and signed the official judgment before the attorneys had even finished preparing their case. The temporal discrepancy was discovered during the appeal process when Metropolitan Insurance's legal team attempted to challenge the ruling. Their investigation revealed that Judge Kellerman's written decision contained specific references to legal precedents and case law that weren't presented until November 13th. The judgment appeared to respond to arguments that hadn't yet been made. Court stenographer Margaret Chen confirmed that Judge Kellerman's oral ruling on November 8th had been brief and contained none of the detailed legal reasoning found in the written judgment. The comprehensive written decision, with its citations of cases presented 5 days later, had somehow been completed before the supporting evidence was submitted. Handwriting analysis verified that Judge Kellerman had personally written the judgment on November 8th. The ink dating confirmed that the document was created on that date. Yet the content of the judgment demonstrated knowledge of legal arguments that wouldn't be presented until the following week. The Illinois State Bar launched an investigation into what they initially assumed was judicial misconduct. However, their inquiry revealed that Judge Kellerman had no advanced knowledge of the legal strategies being prepared by either side. Court security footage confirmed that he had no contact with the attorneys between November 8th and November 13th. Judge Kellerman himself was unable to explain the discrepancy. He recalled writing the judgment on November 8th based on what he described as an unusually clear understanding of the legal issues involved. He claimed to have experienced what felt like perfect clarity about the case, as if he had already heard all the arguments, even though the final briefs hadn't been submitted. The case was quietly sealed in 1974 after federal investigators determined that the temporal anomaly represented a potential security risk to the judicial system. The official explanation attributed the discrepancy to misfiled paperwork and administrative errors. But legal scholars who studied the case before its classification insisted that the chronological evidence was conclusive and unexplainable. The impossible death certificate. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison died on June 3, 1989, at Riverside General Hospital in Portland, Oregon. Her death was attended by 3 physicians, witnessed by hospital staff, and followed standard medical protocols. The death certificate was completed by Dr. Patricia Wells and filed with the Oregon Department of Vital Records on June 4, 1989. The cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest following complications from pneumonia. The temporal anomaly was discovered 6 months later when Dr. Morrison's estate attorneys requested certified copies of her death certificate. The Oregon Department of Vital Records found that they had 2 official death certificates for Dr. Morrison on file. Both contained identical information and bore the same registration number, but one was dated June 4, 1989, and the other was dated May 28, 1989. The May 28th death certificate showed that Dr. Morrison had died 6 days before her actual death. Hospital records confirmed that Dr. Morrison was alive, working, and treating patients on May 28th. She had attended a medical conference that day and had been photographed with colleagues at the event. Yet an official death certificate bearing that date existed in state records. Forensic examination revealed that both death certificates were genuine documents, created using official state forms and procedures. The signatures of the attending physician and the state registrar were authentic on both certificates. The paper, ink, and printing processes were identical and showed no signs of forgery or alteration. The investigation revealed that the May 28th death certificate had been processed through normal bureaucratic channels. It had been assigned a registration number, entered into state databases, and transmitted to federal agencies for Social Security and IRS notification. Dr. Morrison's death had been officially recorded and reported while she was still alive and working. Hospital security footage confirmed that Dr. Morrison had been actively treating patients on May 28th and had shown no signs of illness. Her medical records indicated that she didn't develop pneumonia symptoms until June 1st, 3 days after her death had been officially certified by the state. The case attracted federal attention when Social Security Administration computers began processing Dr. Morrison's death benefits based on the May 28th certificate while she was still reporting for work at the hospital. The temporal discrepancy created systematic problems across multiple government databases that had recorded her death before it occurred. Oregon state officials initially suspected fraud, but their investigation found no evidence of criminal activity. Dr. Patricia Wells, who had signed the death certificate, confirmed that she had only examined Dr. Morrison's body on June 3rd and had never completed any documentation on May 28th. Yet her signature appeared on both certificates with identical handwriting characteristics. The case was classified by federal authorities in 1990 after determining that the temporal anomaly represented a potential threat to vital record security. The official explanation claimed that computer processing errors had created duplicate records with incorrect dates, but state employees insisted that their 1989 filing system was entirely paper-based and didn't use computerized dating. The predated military discharge. Sergeant Thomas Bradley completed his tour of duty in Vietnam on March 15, 1970, and was honorably discharged from the United States Army. His discharge papers were processed at Fort Benning, Georgia, and officially dated March 15, 1970. The documentation appeared routine until Bradley applied for veterans benefits in 1975. The Veterans Administration discovered that Bradley's military personnel file contained discharge papers dated February 8, 1970, more than 5 weeks before his actual discharge. The predated documents indicated that Bradley had completed his military service while he was still serving in active combat in Vietnam. Military records confirmed that Bradley had participated in Operation Junction City from February 10th through March 12, 1970. Radio communications logs showed that he had been in regular contact with his commanding officers throughout February and early March. Battle reports documented his presence during firefights that occurred weeks after his discharge papers indicated he had left military service. The February 8th discharge papers contained accurate information that couldn't have been known at the time of their alleged creation. Bradley's final service ratings, his accumulated leave time, and his forwarding address were all correctly documented in papers that predated the completion of his tour by over a month. Pentagon investigators examined Bradley's entire military record and discovered that the temporal discrepancy extended beyond his discharge papers. Several commendation letters and performance reviews in his file were dated before the actions they described had taken place. Bradley had apparently been recommended for medals before completing the missions that earned them. The investigation revealed that Bradley's case wasn't isolated. The military personnel database contained hundreds of similar temporal anomalies affecting discharge papers, transfer orders, and service records from the Vietnam War period. Documents consistently showed completion dates that preceded the actual completion of military service. Defense Department officials initially attributed the discrepancies to administrative errors during the massive paperwork processing required by troop withdrawals from Vietnam. However, their investigation found that the predated documents contained information that couldn't have been available to military clerks until weeks or months later. Bradley himself was unable to explain the temporal discrepancy. He confirmed that he had remained on active duty through March 15, 1970, and had never seen discharge papers until that date. Yet official military records indicated that his service had ended more than a month earlier. The case was classified in 1976 after Pentagon officials determined that the temporal anomalies represented a potential security risk to military personnel systems. The official explanation attributed the dating errors to computer processing mistakes during the digitization of paper records, but military administrators confirmed that computerized systems weren't used for discharge processing in 1970. The chronologically impossible patent. On September 12, 1965, inventor Raymond Clark filed patent application 3,847,291 with the United States Patent Office for an electronic digital display system. The application described a device for displaying numerical information using light-emitting diodes arranged in 7-segment patterns. Clark's patent was officially approved and registered on October 3, 1965. The temporal anomaly was discovered in 1983 when technology historians researching the development of digital display systems found that Clark's patent contained detailed descriptions of manufacturing processes that weren't developed until the 1970s. His application included specifications for semiconductor materials that hadn't been invented in 1965 and cited chemical compounds that weren't synthesized until years later. Patent Office investigators examined Clark's original application and found that it demonstrated knowledge of LED technology that was decades ahead of the scientific understanding available in 1965. The application described precise wavelength characteristics, power consumption calculations, and thermal management techniques that weren't discovered by mainstream researchers until the late 1970s. Most disturbing was Clark's description of manufacturing equipment that didn't exist in 1965. His patent application included detailed specifications for clean room environments, automated assembly systems, and quality control procedures that weren't developed by the electronics industry until the following decade. The investigation revealed that Clark had no formal engineering education and worked as a television repair technician in rural Montana. He had no access to advanced research facilities and no connections to the electronics industry. Yet his patent application demonstrated sophisticated knowledge of semiconductor physics and manufacturing techniques that surpassed the expertise of leading scientists in 1965. Patent Office records confirmed that Clark's application had been processed through normal procedures and reviewed by qualified examiners. The patent had been approved based on its technical merit and innovative design. However, several components described in the application wouldn't be successfully manufactured by major electronics companies until years later. Federal investigators interviewed Clark in 1984 and found him unable to explain the advanced technical knowledge demonstrated in his patent. He claimed to have developed his ideas through experimentation in his home workshop, but couldn't reproduce the sophisticated understanding of semiconductor science that appeared in his application. The case attracted the attention of the Defense Department when they realized that Clark's 1965 patent contained descriptions of display technologies that were being developed for classified military projects in the 1980s. His patent application appeared to anticipate defense research that wouldn't begin for another 15 years. The Patent Office classified Clark's file in 1985 after determining that his application represented a potential security risk to ongoing defense research. The official explanation claimed that clerical errors had caused misdating of patent documents, but Patent Office officials confirmed that their 1965 filing procedures were entirely manual and couldn't have produced such systematic dating errors. The retroactive property deed. In August 1981, Margaret Henderson purchased a Victorian house at 247 Oak Street in Salem, Massachusetts, through a standard real estate transaction. The property deed was notarized, recorded with the Essex County Registry of Deeds, and filed under Book 2847, page 156. The transaction appeared completely routine until Henderson attempted to sell the property in 1994. The buyer's title search revealed an impossible discrepancy in the property records. According to the Essex County files, Henderson's deed had been recorded on July 23, 1981, but the property hadn't been officially surveyed until August 15, 1981. The deed contained precise boundary measurements, lot dimensions, and geographic coordinates that couldn't have been determined before the survey was completed. Real estate attorneys examining the case discovered that Henderson's deed referenced survey markers that hadn't been installed until weeks after the deed was allegedly filed. The document described property boundaries based on stakes and monuments that were placed during the August survey, yet the deed claimed to have been recorded in July. Registry officials initially suspected a filing error, but their investigation revealed something far more complex. The deed contained accurate descriptions of property features that weren't discovered until the survey work began. An underground water line, a buried foundation wall, and even the precise location of mature oak trees were all correctly documented in a deed that predated their official discovery. The notary public who had witnessed Henderson's signature confirmed that the deed signing ceremony had occurred on August 18, 1981, nearly 4 weeks after the document was allegedly recorded with the county. Bank records showed that Henderson's mortgage funds weren't transferred until August 20th, yet official records indicated the property transfer had been completed in July. Essex County launched a comprehensive audit of their filing system and discovered 17 similar cases involving property deeds that had been recorded before essential information could have been available. Survey data, title searches, and legal descriptions all appeared in documents that predated the processes required to obtain such information. The temporal discrepancies created serious legal problems for property owners whose titles were based on chronologically impossible documentation. Insurance companies refused to issue title policies for properties with retroactive deeds, claiming that the temporal anomalies represented an unacceptable risk to coverage. Federal investigators became involved when the pattern of retroactive property records was discovered in registry offices across New England. The systematic nature of the temporal anomalies suggested coordination that exceeded simple clerical errors or administrative mistakes. The case was classified in 1995 after federal authorities determined that the property record anomalies represented a potential threat to real estate market stability. The official explanation attributed the dating discrepancies to computer conversion errors, but registry officials confirmed that their 1981 filing systems were entirely paper-based and manually dated. The future-dated Social Security card. When Jennifer Martinez turned 16 in 1987, she applied for a Social Security card to begin working part-time at a local grocery store. The Social Security Administration issued card number 54, 5-7, 8-9, 234, and mailed it to her Phoenix, Arizona address. The card appeared completely standard until Martinez applied for college financial aid in 1993. The Department of Education's verification process revealed that Martinez's Social Security card had been issued on September 14, 1987. But according to Social Security Administration records, she hadn't applied until October 8, 1987. Her card had been processed and issued 3 weeks before she submitted her application. Social Security investigators examined Martinez's file and found that her card application contained information that couldn't have been available on the alleged issue date. The application included her school enrollment status, her part-time employment information, and even her supervisor's signature from a job she hadn't started until October 1987. The application form showed that Martinez had listed her employer as Morrison's Market and provided the store manager's contact information. However, Martinez didn't apply for the job at Morrison's Market until late September 1987 and wasn't hired until October 3rd. Yet this employment information appeared on a Social Security application that was allegedly processed in mid-September. Federal investigators interviewed the Morrison's Market manager, who confirmed that he had never met Martinez before October 1987 and had no knowledge of any Social Security documentation prior to her hiring. Yet his signature appeared on Social Security forms that predated their first meeting by several weeks. The Social Security Administration's internal audit revealed that Martinez's case was part of a larger pattern affecting hundreds of cards applications processed in 1987. Applications consistently contained employment and educational information that wasn't available until weeks after the cards were allegedly issued. Computer analysis of the Social Security database showed that the temporal anomalies weren't random errors but followed specific patterns. Cards issued in September 1987 contained October information, while cards issued in October contained November data, suggesting a systematic temporal displacement affecting the entire processing system. Martinez herself was unable to explain the discrepancy. She confirmed that she had applied for her Social Security card in early October 1987 and had never submitted any paperwork before that date. Yet federal records indicated that her application had been processed and approved weeks earlier. The case was classified in 1994, after federal authorities determined that the Social Security temporal anomalies represented a potential threat to national identification systems. The official explanation attributed the dating errors to computer clock malfunctions during system upgrades, but Social Security officials confirmed that their 1987 processing systems were primarily manual and didn't rely on automated dating. The preemptive death record. Robert Chen died in a car accident on Interstate 495 near Boston, Massachusetts on December 15, 1991. The accident was investigated by state police, documented by emergency responders, and certified by the medical examiner. Chen's death certificate was filed with the Massachusetts Registry of Vital Records and assigned certificate number 91BOS8847. The case appeared to be a tragic but routine traffic fatality until Chen's insurance company began processing his life insurance claim. The insurance investigation revealed that Chen's death had been reported to the Social Security Death Master file on November 28, 1991, more than 2 weeks before the accident occurred. Federal databases had recorded Chen as deceased while he was still alive, working and driving the car that would later be involved in his fatal crash. Social Security Administration investigators found that Chen's death record contained accurate details that couldn't have been known before December 15th. The cause of death, the location of the accident, and even the specific injuries he sustained were all correctly documented in records that predated the actual event by 17 days. The investigation revealed that Chen's death notification had been processed through normal federal procedures and transmitted to multiple government agencies. His Social Security benefits had been terminated, his Medicare coverage had been canceled, and his tax records had been flagged for estate processing, all before he died. Most disturbing was the discovery that Chen's death record included information about the accident investigation that hadn't been completed until days after his actual death. Police report numbers, witness statements, and forensic analysis results all appeared in federal records that were created weeks before the events they described. Massachusetts State Police confirmed that Chen had been alive and actively driving on November 28, 1991. Traffic camera footage showed him purchasing gas at a service station on that date, more than 2 weeks before his death was allegedly recorded by federal authorities. The Social Security Administration's internal investigation found that Chen's case was part of a larger pattern affecting death records processed in late 1991. Dozens of death certificates contained accurate information about events that hadn't yet occurred, suggesting systematic temporal displacement in the federal death reporting system. Federal investigators interviewed Chen's family and coworkers, confirming that he had shown no signs of illness and had made plans extending well beyond November 28th. His appointment calendar contained meetings scheduled through January 1992, and he had purchased Christmas gifts for his family in early December. The case was classified in 1992, after federal authorities determined that the preemptive death records represented a potential threat to vital statistic security. The official explanation attributed the dating errors to database synchronization problems during computer system updates, but Social Security officials confirmed that their death reporting procedures in 1991 were primarily manual and couldn't have produced such systematic temporal anomalies. The Anachronistic immigration document. In 1976, Dmitry Volkov emigrated from the Soviet Union to the United States under a family reunification program. His immigration papers were processed at Ellis Island, reviewed by INS officials, and approved for permanent residency. Volkov received his green card on August 12, 1976, and began working as a translator in Brooklyn, New York. The immigration appeared completely routine until Volkov applied for U.S. citizenship in 1982. The naturalization review process revealed an impossible discrepancy in Volkov's immigration file. His green card application contained detailed information about the Soviet exit visa process that wouldn't be implemented by the USSR until 1978. Volkov's paperwork described bureaucratic procedures and documentation requirements that didn't exist when he emigrated in 1976. Immigration officials examining the case found that Volkov's application referenced specific Soviet immigration laws and regulations that weren't enacted until 2 years after his departure. His paperwork demonstrated knowledge of policy changes that occurred after he had already left the country and established residency in the United States. The investigation revealed that Volkov's immigration file contained copies of Soviet documents that bore official stamps and signatures from government offices that weren't created until 1977. His exit visa showed processing through bureaucratic channels that didn't exist during his actual emigration in 1976. Most puzzling was Volkov's detailed knowledge of Soviet immigration procedures that were implemented after his departure. His INS interviews contained accurate descriptions of policy changes and administrative reforms that occurred while he was living in Brooklyn, with no apparent means of obtaining such specific information. State Department officials confirmed that U.S. intelligence agencies had no advanced knowledge of the Soviet immigration policy changes that appeared in Volkov's 1976 documentation. The procedural details in his file represented information that wasn't available to American officials until years later. The INS investigation found that Volkov's case was part of a larger pattern affecting Soviet emigration records from the mid-1970s. Multiple immigration files contained references to policies and procedures that wouldn't be implemented until years after the emigrants had left the USSR. Volkov himself was unable to explain the temporal discrepancies in his immigration file. He confirmed that he had emigrated in 1976 using standard procedures and had no knowledge of policy changes that occurred after his departure. Yet his official documentation contained precise details of bureaucratic reforms that happened while he was living in America. The case was classified in 1983 after federal authorities determined that the immigration temporal anomalies represented a potential security risk to the naturalization process. The official explanation attributed the discrepancies to translation errors and document processing mistakes, but INS officials insisted that the chronological evidence was conclusive and unexplainable. We've exposed 9 impossible government documents so far, but the final case might be the most disturbing of all. Before we reveal it, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future videos where we continue to uncover evidence that time itself may not be what we think it is. Now let's dive into our final time anomaly, the Congressional Record Contradiction. On June 7, 1969, Congressman Robert Hayes delivered a speech on the House floor condemning American military involvement in Southeast Asia. The speech was recorded by official stenographers, witnessed by dozens of colleagues, and entered into the Congressional record as part of the permanent legislative archive. Hayes' remarks appeared completely standard until researchers examining Cold War-era documentation discovered an impossible chronological discrepancy in 1994. The Congressional record showed that Hayes' anti-war speech had been officially transcribed and published on May 23, 1969, 15 days before he actually delivered it. The published record contained verbatim quotes, specific policy criticisms, and detailed statistical references that matched his June 7th floor speech word for word. House archivists initially suspected a printing error, but their investigation revealed something far more disturbing. The May 23rd Congressional record contained Hayes' complete speech, including his responses to interruptions and questions from other representatives that occurred during the June 7th session. The published record anticipated parliamentary interactions that hadn't yet taken place. Stenographic analysis confirmed that Hayes' speech had been recorded using standard House procedures on June 7, 1969. Audio recordings from that session matched the published text exactly, but the Congressional record showed that identical text had been typeset and printed 2 weeks earlier. The investigation revealed that the May 23rd publication contained references to news events that occurred between May 23rd and June 7th. Hayes' speech mentioned casualty reports, diplomatic developments, and military operations that weren't publicly known until days before his actual presentation. House Printing Office records confirmed that the Congressional record for May 23rd had been typeset, printed, and distributed through normal procedures. Government Printing Office employees verified that they had processed Hayes' speech text using standard protocols, but none could explain how they had obtained a transcript of remarks that hadn't been delivered. Federal investigators discovered that Hayes' case represented part of a larger pattern affecting Congressional record publications throughout 1969. Dozens of speeches, floor debates, and legislative proceedings appeared in the official record days or weeks before they actually occurred in the House chamber. The chronological discrepancies created serious constitutional questions about the accuracy and reliability of the Congressional record as an official government document. Legal scholars argued that laws based on predated legislative proceedings might lack constitutional validity. Hayes himself was unable to explain the temporal anomaly. He confirmed that he had delivered his speech on June 7th and had never provided advance copies to House staff or printing office personnel. Yet his exact words appeared in the official legislative record 2 weeks before he spoke them. The case was classified in 1995 after federal authorities determined that Congressional record temporal anomalies represented a potential threat to legislative process security. The official explanation attributed the dating errors to printing schedule complications, but House archivists confirmed that their 1969 publication procedures couldn't have produced such systematic chronological displacement. These 10 documented cases represent more than bureaucratic anomalies or clerical mistakes. They reveal a disturbing pattern of temporal displacement affecting the most fundamental systems of official documentation. Birth certificates filed before births occur, death records created before deaths happen, and government documents that anticipate events they're supposed to record. What unites these cases isn't their impossibility, but their systematic nature. The temporal anomalies follow consistent patterns across different agencies, time periods, and geographical locations. Documents consistently contain information that shouldn't be available until days, weeks, or even months after their creation dates. Each case has been investigated by multiple government agencies and remains officially unexplained. The physical evidence is conclusive and has been verified by forensic analysis. The chronological discrepancies are documented in permanent government archives and continue to create legal and administrative complications decades after their discovery. The systematic suppression of these cases through classification and official explanations suggests that government agencies recognize the profound implications of temporal anomalies in official documentation. If time isn't as fixed and linear as we believe, then the entire foundation of legal, administrative, and historical record-keeping becomes questionable. These documents don't just record history, they suggest that history itself may be far more fluid and malleable than anyone wants to admit. The future appears to bleed backward into official records, creating documents that know things they shouldn't know and record events before they happen. The implications extend far beyond individual cases of temporal displacement. These anomalies challenge our fundamental understanding of causality and suggest that official documentation systems may be vulnerable to influences that operate outside conventional temporal boundaries. Government agencies have quietly implemented new verification protocols designed to detect chronological inconsistencies, but these measures only address the symptoms of a phenomenon they cannot explain. The pattern becomes even more disturbing when examined across multiple decades. Time anomalies in official documents appear to cluster around periods of significant historical change, technological advancement, and social upheaval. The concentration of temporal discrepancies during the 1960s through 1980s coincides with major developments in computer technology, space exploration, and quantum physics research. The existence of temporal anomalies in official documents represents one of the most closely guarded secrets in government archives. These cases prove that time itself may not be the fixed linear progression we assume it to be. Instead, the evidence suggests that past, present, and future exist simultaneously, occasionally bleeding through into our documentation systems in ways that reveal the true nature of temporal reality. Perhaps most unsettling is what these cases reveal about the nature of government knowledge and public awareness. The systematic classification of temporal anomaly evidence suggests that authorities have been aware of chronological displacement phenomena for decades while maintaining public belief in linear time progression. The careful suppression of these cases through official explanations and security restrictions indicates a coordinated effort to prevent widespread recognition of temporal irregularities. These time anomalies in government documents prove that reality may be far stranger than we're told. Documents that know the future, records that violate causality, and official files that defy the laws of time itself, all hidden away in classified archives. But temporal anomalies aren't the only things being hidden from us. In our previous video, 10 Human Experiments Hidden from History, we exposed the horrifying truth about government programs that treated human beings as disposable test subjects, experiments that were deliberately covered up for decades, just like these impossible documents. The pattern is clear. When evidence challenges what we're supposed to believe, it gets buried. Click the video on your screen right now to see what other truths have been systematically hidden from public knowledge. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss when we expose the next cover-up. Thanks for watching, and remember, the documents don't lie, even when they tell us impossible things about time itself. Until next time, when we find out how.